Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this talk. My name is Sheen Brisals. I'm a senior engineering manager at the Lego Group. And I also have the privilege and honor of the recent recognition as an AWS Serverless Hero. So thank you all so much for your support and the community that looks after serverless. I'm so excited to be here today. And just want to make one thing clear. You will find plenty of green and yellow in my slides. This is just coincidental, right? So just saying, all right? Okay, so here is the agenda for today. So I'll briefly touch upon serverless and Lego because every serverless talk should talk about serverless, right? So then we will move on to certain, a few struggles that the teams or the organizations go through, and then we will focus on how we can set up and grow a serverless team for the benefits that it will bring to an organization or a team. Right. So serverless. So I'm not going to read upon these things. This you must have heard a number of times today so far. Again, I don't focus on the definition of serverless because that's everybody knows that. But I will focus on why serverless, because it's worth spending a couple of minutes here. The one reason is it's an ecosystem of managed services. It's not just about function as a service. It's around so many different services coming together to perform the solution. And then the beauty is the granular level optimization option we have. Each function can be optimized. Each queue can be optimized. Each your NoSQL table can be optimized. That is the beauty of serverless. And then it is a very good friend for your iterative development. You can't find a better technology than this one. And most importantly, it brings the engineering diversity because you're not seeing mere programmers in your team. You are seeing beyond the programmers who understand the architecture, who understand the security, who understands how a service or an application needs to be deployed, and everything around that they become masters at. That's why I'm so excited to say all the time that serverless brings engineering diversity. And basically, I mean, this also it fits very well with our theme of our talk today as well. Okay, now briefly touching upon what we do at Lego Serverless. So this is lego.com, your favorite site where you go to browse and buy products. Now, last year we moved the backend of this the lego.com to run on serverless, and the front end, and there is the data layer, which is a GraphQL layer, and they run on Fargate, but the backend services are all on 100% serverless, and that's been our approach. So you will find the sort of the ideas and things that I talk about today has sort of resemblance to some of the things that we do, and also a few of the things are from my own thinking or observation, not necessarily that it reflects exactly what we have at at Lego. Right. So often when organizations start to work with serverless, you can see sort of the two different patterns. On one side, you have these sort of early adopters. Early adoption in the sense that I'm not saying that the companies who jumped on to serverless as soon as the serverless word was announced or function as a service was announced. No, these are the companies or organizations who looked at serverless and they thought, okay, it's a fit for us. Then they just started their work or development with serverless. So they are, you most likely start something very simple or small, then they iteratively and scale up and continuous improvement or iterations, all the good things. So they bring out their solution first, then they work on making it better. So that's sort of the approach. They use sort of the proven patterns in the industry, not try to reinvent the wheel and try to get the acceleration or the momentum going. So these companies obviously race ahead, okay, because they see the benefit, then they just think. And on the other side, we have this sort of organization, they get into this sort of endless experimentation mode. And because these organizations are like, they are judgmental, and they always, dubious, and they can't take risk, and they look for all the, the planets and stars to align before they, make a start. And they are like, you can say that they are the purists, or they follow the textbooks most of the times, and they engage in writing volumes of best practice documents and so many other things. And for millions of years, they will engage in this sort of vendor lock-in, debate, and they lock themselves into that, and they never get unlocked. Okay, so the drawback is that they fall behind and behind, and then the gap between the early adoption and this sort of organization widens. Okay, so what happens then? Because now they are under pressure. They want to end these endless experiments, and they want to produce something with serverless, all because of the pressure, internal as well as external. And they, you need to have a status to maintain, because, often you hear about, oh, that organization uses the legacy stuff and nothing new, all the old stuff, and etc. And also customers, they demand new things, because in this modern world, they know what they need, so they demand, the better things. And the company's fear of losing their loyal customer base. So with all these things they're stressed upon and under pressure, they venture out to do something. Let's build serverless. Okay, but the problem is, they don't have any patience or the time or the care to do a proper serverless, development. So in an organization, you see few engineers scattered around here, but they don't really look after them. Instead, what they do is they hire and assemble experts from outside, most likely. And what they do is they come along, and they are different characters, they have their own skills, but they are here to do the job, and they build something, right? So it works. And what happens is, they see that it's all fine, so they dissolve the team. Okay, because they are temporary or whatever. Fine. So they see there is some benefit. What happens is, they repeat. They repeat the pattern, because they bring somebody, build something, dissolve. The problem is that these poor engineers within their organization, they get disappointed, and most likely they become the sort of the maintenance engineers in the traditional speak, and they don't have any say. And in many cases, when they bring in this sort of external expertise, they don't have any process or care to distribute the knowledge among these internal engineers. Okay, the problem then happens is, there is a no growth. There is no people growth, there is no team growth, and there is no organizational growth. That means it's obvious that there is no serverless growth at all in these organizations. That is the reason why it's important that we should put some effort and the time to grow the teams. We will see later on the benefits it can bring to an organization. It's important to think, when we start serverless, is that nobody is going to start perfect with serverless. So that's why I said, don't wait for a perfect moment to hit serverless. Start something, and then always keep better and better. This is a very important thing, and many companies or many teams, they don't get this. They try to make it perfect first time. It's with all the good intention, but thing is, it delays getting something out onto production. Okay, now let's go. So I will go through 10 different steps, and I will kind of relate that. I will take example from nature and relate with the way we set up teams. So join me as we move along. And the first one is the field. Okay, it's obvious that when we grow something, we need a proper field with all the nutritions and everything as much as possible. So that equates to the team environment or the organizational culture and the environment. So that's what I'm relating to. So when we look at an organization, what do I mean by the right environment? So not in any particular order, it needs to promote the innovative culture, experimentation, and then risk taking. So that brings the self belief in the team or the engineers, and they learn from the mistakes, and the ownership culture and the self governing, not necessarily somebody else 1,000 miles away making the decisions, but the teams themselves, they are empowered to make their own decisions. And that brings the fast or efficient processes in place, and most importantly, the trust brings the motivation to the team. So all these kind of good things that you need in an environment to make sure that we can then start growing, yeah, the serverless team. Okay, second thing is a seed. So we need to grow something. We need the seed. So in most cases in farming, they identify the best seeds for the better yield, right? So it's same here. We need engineers who can be the torch bearers or the pilot engineers who can start the entire, the growth of the entire the team. So that's why it's so important that we identify the best in business. So there are two important aspects, I would say. One is the attitude, and the second is the aptitude. So the attitude is these engineers we identify from the organizations must have this can-do attitude, the passion and the hunger for technology. These are very important aspects. And then the aptitude. This is where the skills come in. You need the best breed in place to kickstart the whole, the flow. They need to be architecturally aware, but they need to be security awareness, all the good things that you can see in a software engineer, that they need to have that. So identify them, then the growth will become, a bit more smoother for the, and importantly, we need a grower or a gardener or a cultivator. In our terms, it's an enabler. It could be a leader or a manager or an engineer or an architect, whoever can be, someone who can guide the team, who can direct the team and guide them in sort of green fields or pastures, whatever we like to say. Okay, so this person is like in a way we can say that is a conductor of an orchestra, right? So he can move the things and he can direct and ask the engineers and bring them together and make them deliver. So the two important aspects is, one is the role. So the role, as I mentioned, this person could be anybody. It could be a coach, mentoring, architect, engineer, with all the good skills and knowledge. He can be he or she can be a server leader, that sort of the mentality. So it's not like really commanding the thing. This is more like guiding. So the characteristics wise should be a good techie and passionate and committed in the team developments, and also this person needs to be business friendly, because the one who will be interacting a lot with the stakeholders, at least during the early stages of this growth. And of course, the agile principles and all the good things that incrementally developing solutions and things should be part of this person's ethos. So these are the things that we need to look into, the enabler that who will bring the whole the growth of the team up. Okay, so this is the important thing is like serverless is not just one thing done and dusted. It's like a long journey with multiple destination in the sense like you achieve something, then you go on to do something else. Could be a new product development, new feature, or anything. So it's not just one destination journey. Just journey continues. So that's why it's important that you identify this enablers, a good navigator that who can travel with the team and the organization to to take the whole thing to different places. And the important one, nutrients. Okay, so for growth, it's so important to have the essentials, right? So how do we relate to in a serverless team environment? So that's where the training aspect comes. Training aspects is not just one thing; it's different things. Like, okay, so it's not in any order. There are, the conferences or courses or the workshops, lunch and learn, certifications, all these good things that will gear up these engineers to learn more and become better. And of course, there are many other things like listening to podcasts and newsletters, blogs, and internal hackathons and the community events. All these good things, they bring the so much to the wealth of the team, that these should be practiced in while we grow the team. Then of course the growth. So this is when the team slowly takes shape. Many engineers come on board, and they start to grow. So obviously it's a growth. The good thing about the growth is that the skill set grows, and also the different team aspects you are aware of, the cohesiveness or the pairing or programming and collaboration. So they slowly gel together to become as a one team. So that's the importance of the growing versus the building, where when we bring engineers from the different areas or from externals, they all come in with a different skill set and personalities and things like that. You don't often see that sort of a cohesive environment in that sort of setup. So that's why it's important that when we grow a team, this becomes a good motivating point for everyone. So they slowly start understanding CI/CD, the infrastructure, platform, DevOps, all these things slowly come up. Okay, so that's the growth part. And also the best practices, they become awareness of the privacy aspects and the security consciousness, all these good things, it starts to take shape. And it's important that everyone should have, when we work on serverless, to have this serverless mind shift, because this helps to see us the applications we develop serverless as an event-driven orchestration of managed services, all knitted together with the infrastructure code. So that's how we bring the best value to the business, also to the customers. And then the fruits. So when you have a team growing, you start to see their contributions or early victories, I would say. So these could be simple things. Like, so the simple outcomes that we can expect from a team. But on the other side, what it helps is to get at from the stakeholder or the business point of view, to raise the profile of the team. So that's also important. So victory is not just the team victory, it also has an effect from the other side, from the business point of view as well. Say, for example, when you start with a small team, the first victory could be your POC, the proof of concepts, the first thing you did. What that does to the stakeholder point of view is they get some, they trust you, because they can see you something. So the next iteration could be your MVP, the viable product thing coming in. So that then brings more confidence in the team from the business side of things. And of course, then you move on and you take your service or application to production, and you get the respect. The team gets the respect from the organization, from the stakeholders. So this is very important. So that's why the early victories or something should be celebrated. Not only, from the team point of view, bring the stakeholders, POs, and everybody together, and should be appreciated and lauded, so that brings more goodness, more motivation, and more, the drive to the serverless team. And then the maturity. So as they grow, obviously you expect the maturity. So this is when they become an awesome team. Okay, I mean, you can put different the terms there, but the point is that you can see, okay, here is a team. They are committed, driven, and they can bring value. So that's the awesome team. So how this happens is, okay, so here is the serverless team, and they, the velocity, you see, the increased velocity. So that then brings new releases that you release, frequently, and that, brings more features to the business. More features out there means more customers getting benefit, means more value for the business, right? So these are all sort of interrelated and connected. And then the other aspects like the ownership culture, comes into the team, and they contribute to the community or sharing and all those sort of things. And engineers start to understand the architecture better, and they move towards being architect and becoming DevOps engineers, because they are part of the whole process. It's not just somebody else doing it. The team is involved in their release pipelines and deployments and looking after everything. So this is, the beauty of growing the team is that they become masters of everything. So that is, very important aspect of it. And serverless engineer, I once wrote a blog post and I came up with this definition. It's just a software engineer who is innovative and, secure stuff and cloud first. He or she functional focus, and most importantly, who can iteratively, develop and deliver solutions. Pruning. Okay, so this is something that happens to every team, however awesome or not. So what I mean here is that this is when we identify any distractions in the team, or the things that restrict the team to become efficient or continuing in the efficiency, and then trying to sort that out. So there could be number of the distractions, right? Because sometimes they end up doing something that is not going to bring any value to the business. They could be over engineering the processes. They could be some other issues, and they lost the plot or something. So this is where the enabler steps in. Okay, so the enabler steps in and makes sure that the distractions are resolved and the team stays an awesome team. Okay, so this is, you see the role of the enabler, the person, whoever is going to be, taking that sort of a mantle. So that is an important position, because it's common in every team environment. We get through these sort of things. Okay, so that's why it's important that we keep that, these sort of, the frictions and things smoothened, so that the team can remain, a great team. And the renewal process. So this is like, related to the 4 seasons we have, right? In nature, we have these 4 seasons, and there's so much of, things happen in nature. So similarly, in a team environment, especially in a serverless team environment, it's important that we take pauses and look at improving things, or looking back and retrospectively and doing all sorts of things. So things like, okay, we slowly accumulating tech debt, so let's take pause and sort that out, and let's bring in new technology, and it's a time to refactor before it becomes too late. And then if you wanted to adjust certain processes, this is the time. So if you think that something is not working well, change it. And the team adjustments, and the sort of offsite and the other bonding activities to make it even better, the team cohesiveness even better, and the workshops and the training that I talked about, and all these things. You can bring experts to give sort of motivational talks and all sorts of things. So all these things will only do good to the the serverless team. So these are all important aspects of the growing the team. And even after the growing, it needs to happen in a cycle always. And then, of course, finally, one team brings more teams. Okay, so you have a template, you have an awesome team. Then what happens is there's a new team coming up. Okay, then there's another team, and more teams come along, because now you have the expertise. You can slowly distribute the knowledge into other teams, and that will then grow the other teams together. So in slowly, I'll talk about a bit later. Slowly, you get to see the benefit of the growing the serverless knowledge within your organization. So that's the beauty of it. Right, so here is a recap. So first one is the environment that needs to be set up, and then we need to have the right engineers to kick off the whole thing, and then we can bring in other engineers with a different skill set, but that's fine. But at least the early engineers should be spot on with their skills and attitude. And then the enabler, the leader who can guide the team, and the training and the coaching aspect, and the growth and the outcome, the victories that I talked about. And then the team is there. So these are the sort of the steps that I mentioned. Remember that these things won't happen overnight by magic. It takes time, it takes dedication, and it takes it takes a long journey. So okay, so we did all these things, growing stuff. So what's the point? Why did we do that? Are we getting any benefits out of it? So what so if there aren't any benefits, why go through all the the struggle of growing a team? So I once mentioned this. So this is so true. And if you talk to any successful serverless organizations or teams, they will tell you. Because the early part, we do all the groundwork, we set up the team, and we gear up, we take initial the applications, also the services, to production. From there on, it's really easy to accelerate and keep going. That's why I kind of talk about this satellite launch analogy, that you have this heavy lifting first, then once up there in space, it's like free flowing. So similarly, we can think of serverless adoption as well. Okay, so there are three things I will talk about and close. One is the value growth. This is the business value as well as the the customer value. So I call this as a value acceleration. And there are a number of things. So a few things I talked about. So releasing features faster. So starting with the MVP first and then sophisticating. So you always see the the product out there, and the parallel development streams, and bringing new features in parallel. And then the rapid releases that goes along with that, because you get into a situation of multiple daily releases, and any day release, like a Friday is a good day kind of thing. And of course, the business harmony, because the confidence in the team and the technology grows, the trust increases. So that means you only get more motivation and good things coming out of the team. The second thing is people growth. This is the team acceleration. So I briefly touched upon this. Is the whole idea of, okay. Now, serverless requires new way of thinking, because like I mentioned earlier, the mind shift. So new way of working and running application. That means we all need to change our old way of thinking and our old way of working and running applications. So this is important. Those who understand this with that mindset succeed well in serverless. So that's the importance of sort of these concepts that I bring out. Now, initially, you can have a team, a serverless team, and then successfully, then there is a new team being set up, a feature team, for example. So it could be a full stack team. So that requires an engineer or two. So you take engineers from the serverless team, you plant them there. So they then act as a catalyst there in the new team to bring more engineers to serverless. And similarly, there's another team being set up. So an engineer goes there, and then the serverless growth happens there. So this is a simple way of explaining. So in a typical organization or a bigger team, what you will see is that a number of teams all of a sudden growing out of a single team. So I mean, these terms I just came up from my familiarity, but in your business area, in your organization, it could be different. All right. So these teams not necessarily they are fully serverless. They are sort of full stack squad. They will also have the serverless engineers, but certain teams may be heavy with serverless engineers than the other teams. So that's all part of how we set it up. So the basic ingredients are the same in terms of growing a serverless engineering team. But once you're there, then it's just gives that much of freedom and flexibility to maneuver with the teams. Now, the few the good aspects of like I mentioned, the full stack profile comes into the picture. So they either they become architects or the DevOps the consciousness. Then they become the community awareness, all the sharing and all the the open source and talks and blogs and all these things. And the customer care becomes this is very important, because the service ownership or application ownership mentality comes in, and they proactively monitor their applications. They don't hesitate to be on call rota, and all these are good things for a team to have. And of course, the organizational asset aspect as well as grows, because the morale increases, the efficiency. That means the business brings out more features for the customers. That brings more value for the organization. So this all the good cycle that continues. And finally, the technology growth. What I call is the serverless acceleration. And the many things. So when you have this sort of expertise built in your organization, it grows with the high caliber serverless competency, or the knowledge. And that means they can now build more secure, resilient, and all the good things about an application. And the keeping the serverless ecosystem or the estate refreshed all the time means you don't fall into this sort of typical legacy migration once in few years, because you always keep your serverless estate fresh. Because I talked about the renewal phase, where you pause and bring in new ideas and attempt, or look at the tech debts and remove them. So that means this is staying fresh as much as possible. And also it keeps exactly what I talked about is that to keep the tech stack fresh and efficient. So all these good things become part of the serverless adoption and the acceleration that happens after this. So let me close with these things. So if serverless can give you can be the slingshot, why hesitate? Please accept and adopt it, so that you can accelerate and make use of the true potential of being serverless. That's all I have today. Thank you so much. Let's grow serverless teams. Thank you.